it's the end of the year, which means we lay out all our regrets and things like that. And so I was going to do one for Microsoft and one for Sony when compiling a Microsoft list outside of the obvious more games, more exclusives. I mean, there wasn't really much I can complain about on the Microsoft side. A couple of things here or there, but Sony's side was very interesting, and so I was able to compile quite a good list, and we're going to go over Sony's biggest blunders of 2017. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you guys for checking it out. I appreciate it. I would also appreciate it if you guys hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so, because it would mean a lot to me heading into 2018 with a lot of steam, with a lot of momentum and things like that. So that's all thanks to you guys. Okay, so let's jump into this. The first blunder that Sony did was the new PSVR model, right? Everybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge PlayStation VR fan. And one of the biggest pains in the ass is you have to unhook your PlayStation VR pass-through and hook up a different HDMI cable if you want HDR enabled, because there's no HDR pass-through. So they come out with this new model that lets HDR pass-through. And not giving those that had previously bought this some kind of new box or whatever to allow pass-through is a little bit annoying in my opinion. So, I mean, there's much worse things, but for me, somebody that's, when you're trying to get into the whole thing and you have to go back there and unhook things and rehook things, it's just a big pain in the butt. Next up, GT Sport. Holy hell, this is a debacle of a game. Absolutely terrible what they've done. Gran Turismo used to be the de facto racing series, right? This was Sony's flagship franchise. Each one sold like millions and millions and millions of copies. It's Sony's only billion-dollar franchise. Gran Turismo Sport sucked right out of the gate. It didn't do anything in North America. Was beat out handedly by Forza Motorsport 7. Same thing within, I don't know about Forza beating it in Japan and Europe, but it didn't sell much at all. Basically, what they did was stripped out everything and focused on this esports nonsense, and no single-player stuff. You have to be logged online to save your stuff. This is DRM, folks. The whole thing that everybody got pissed off about when Microsoft announced the Xbox One. Remember, DRM? This game is DRM. That's what it is. So, it's you can't complain about one without the other. Next up, abandoning the indies. Right, remember when Sony was all hard up for games and they didn't have anything, and they had these indies, and all the Sony fanboys were like, indies, and I wasn't a big fan of the early on indies, a lot of the 8-bit pixel art stuff. I'm just not going to lie, I didn't like that stuff, right? Sure, Sony got burned by No Man's Sky, but you don't abandon it altogether, because there's quite a good amount of decent indies out there, especially now that we're this far into the generation and these developers have time to work with the console. So just abandoning them the way they did, very unfortunate. Next up, no release dates for anything. Like, literally no release dates for anything. They have all these games that are supposedly coming out in 2018 and no release dates for a single one of them. Absolutely ludicrous that this is a thing. If they're coming out, they're coming out. If they're not coming out next year, then at least be honest with the people and tell them. Next up, PlayStation Plus price increase. This is something that's very annoying because it's increased yet again. And yet again, they didn't really do anything to make it better. You can't change your name on PSN yet. There's just a lot of problems with it. It still has maintenance all the time and is down all the time. Hell, when people got Gran Turismo Sport for Christmas, the servers were down because they thought it was a DDoS attack. PlayStation Network is still a joke, and increasing the price for this when you're not really increasing the value is a joke. Next up, lackluster PS4 Pro support. Again, Sony acts like this thing doesn't even exist for the most part. It's like an afterthought. Anybody that doesn't believe me, just look at the commercials, or look at the lack of commercials. Look at the lack of support. It's really just a lackluster kind of afterthought for Sony, and it really shows. So, next up, mocking backward compatibility. Jim Ryan. Who would play old games? They look terrible. And then, again, I covered this the other day, charging you to charging people to actually kind of cover old games again. So next up, saying no to cross-network play on some games. I get it, right? You probably don't want cross-network play on something like Call of Duty or Battlefield or Madden, but why not Soccer Cars or Rocket League as it's known? Why not that, or Minecraft? Some of these smaller games where obviously nobody's buying or skipping a PS4 to play those. It would have just been nice to, play with your friend that maybe doesn't have have one or whatever, you know. Or, I'm just saying that would have been something smart. You always say you're for the players and for the gamers, but your actions say otherwise. Next up, E3. I covered this before as well. This E3, like, Sony must have been having a stopwatch or something, man. They were like 53 minutes and we're off. And we're going to show the exact same things we did last year. A lot of CGI stuff. Remake is the biggest thing going. I mean, it seemed like the big surprises at E3 was the Shadow of the Colossus remake, which who cares? Another remake of a remake, actually. And then goes right into my next problem, PSX or Paris Games Week. You're going to have to pick one or the other, right? Because doing those back-to-back really kind of stunk it up. I thought they both were kind of lame. In fact, the Sucker Punch game should have been revealed at E3. Also, the Medieval reveal should have been at E3 as well. Then you would have had at least a mediocre E3 instead of a terrible one. And you didn't even need those other things. Or do PSX and just show off, you know, indies or VR or whatever. But to me, those are the biggest mistakes. I mean, there's a million other ones you could have picked, but these are the ones that really kind of stand out in my opinion. I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts and opinions are on this. Maybe you think I'm crazy, or maybe you think, hey, he's got some points there. You know, I know some of you Sony dudes are like, Sony can do no wrong, but obviously, as I've stated here, they've done some big time wrong. So let me know. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.